What if the rise and fall of the Roman Empire isn't just history, but a warning for us today? At its height, Rome ruled over millions, controlled vast lands, and shaped the world with its power and culture. And yet, despite all its glory, Rome collapsed, piece by piece, until the empire that once thought it would last forever was no more. Here's the surprising truth. The story of Rome is not only about emperors and battles. It's a mirror of human nature, our strengths, our weaknesses, and the timeless patterns that repeat across history. In this video, we're uncovering 10 life lessons from the Roman Empire. Lessons about power, pride, resilience, corruption, and the importance of unity. These are not just lessons about nations, but lessons you and I can apply to our own lives today. So, if you've ever wondered why great powers rise and fall, or how we can avoid repeating the same mistakes, then stay with me until the end. Because the wisdom of Rome may be the key to understanding our world and even ourselves. Before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Which lesson do you think led most to Rome's downfall? Greed, pride, or corruption? Drop your guess in the comments and let's see if history agrees with you. And while you're here, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more timeless lessons from history and philosophy, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Now, let's begin our journey into the first lesson. Lesson 1. Power can build or destroy. The Roman Empire began with ambition. Small villages grew into a republic, then into the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. What drove this rise was power, political power, military power, and the power of ideas. But here's the twist. The very force that built Rome also carried the seeds of its destruction. Endless conquests drained resources, created enemies, and fueled corruption among leaders. Takeaway: power is neither good nor evil. It's a tool. The question is how we choose to use it. In our lives, power can create opportunities, or if misused, it can destroy trust and relationships. And this leads us to something just as vital. The foundation that made Rome strong wasn't only power, but discipline. Lesson 2. Discipline creates strength. Roman soldiers, known as legions, were not ordinary fighters. They were machines of order and precision. They trained for hours, marched for miles, and obeyed commands without hesitation. Their discipline allowed them to defeat larger armies and hold territories that stretched across continents. Rome's discipline wasn't just in its military, it was in its roads, its systems of law, and its administration. That discipline created stability. Takeaway: talent and ambition are useless without consistency. Discipline is the invisible armor that protects both empires and individuals. But discipline without balance can turn into something dangerous: pride. And for Rome, pride would become a fatal flaw. Lesson 3. Pride leads to downfall. At the height of its power, Rome believed it was untouchable. Its leaders thought no enemy could challenge them, no decision could break them. But history tells another story. Pride blinded Rome to growing problems: economic collapse, corruption, and rebellion. Instead of fixing weaknesses, Rome spent lavishly and underestimated its enemies. Takeaway: confidence is healthy, but arrogance is deadly. The moment we think failure is impossible, we stop preparing for it. Still, while pride weakened Rome, another force once fueled its greatness: innovation. And this is where Rome's story shines. Lesson 4. Innovation drives growth. Rome's genius wasn't just in battle, it was in building. They constructed aqueducts that carried water for miles, roads that connected cities across continents, and legal codes that still influence us today. Innovation made Rome more than an empire. It made it a civilization that shaped the future. Takeaway: growth comes from creating, not just conquering. Whether in our work, relationships, or personal life, Constant improvement is what keeps us alive and thriving. Yet even innovation can't protect a people who forget resilience. And this brings us to a quieter, but equally dangerous enemy. Comfort. Lesson 5. Comfort weakens resilience. As Rome grew rich, life became easy. The citizens of Rome no longer lived with the same hunger or drive as their ancestors. Leaders sought pleasure, not responsibility. Citizens enjoyed entertainment, food, and luxury, while the spirit of sacrifice slowly disappeared. Rome was still powerful, but inside it was losing the toughness that once made it unbreakable. Takeaway: comfort itself isn't wrong, but when comfort turns into complacency, decline follows. True strength is not tested in times of ease, but in times of challenge. Lesson 6. Division destroys unity. In the early days, Rome was strong because its people shared a common purpose. Citizens, soldiers, and leaders all worked for the survival of the Republic. But as the empire expanded, unity began to crumble. Political factions fought for control. Wealthy elites clashed with common citizens, and civil wars tore Rome apart from within. The empire that once marched together was now fighting against itself. Takeaway: no empire, company, or family can survive long when divided. Strength lies in unity, and unity requires humility and compromise. But division was not the only threat. While Rome fought itself, another challenge grew at its borders. This leads us to the next lesson. Lesson 7. Neglecting small threats creates big dangers. Rome once believed that its walls and armies could withstand any enemy, but it ignored the rising strength of smaller tribes. The Goths, the Vandals, the Huns. These groups, once considered too weak to matter, slowly grew stronger while Rome looked the other way. Eventually, those same small threats became the ones who invaded and conquered Rome itself. Takeaway: problems rarely destroy us when they first appear. It's when we ignore them, allowing them to grow, that they become powerful enough to bring us down. And just as Rome underestimated its enemies, it also underestimated the danger of losing its own values. Lesson 8. Corruption erodes foundations. As wealth poured into Rome, so did greed. Politicians bought power, leaders used public money for personal gain, and loyalty was often sold to the highest bidder. The very institutions that once protected Rome became corrupted from within. Laws were bent, justice was delayed, and ordinary people lost faith in their leaders. Takeaway: corruption doesn't destroy overnight. It erodes slowly like water carving stone. When values are sold for profit, the foundation of any society or any life eventually collapses. Yet, amid the corruption, another problem weakened Rome even further: dependence. Lesson 9. Overdependence makes you vulnerable. In its later years, Rome relied heavily on mercenaries, soldiers who fought not for loyalty but for money. These mercenaries had no love for Rome. If payment failed, so did their loyalty. The empire became dependent on outsiders for its own survival. And when those outsiders turned against Rome, the empire had nothing left to stand on. Takeaway: depending too much on others, whether for strength, approval, or security, creates weakness. True resilience comes from building inner strength and independence. And as Rome fell into dependence, it also fell into something even more dangerous: forgetting its purpose. Lesson 10. Forgetting purpose leads to collapse. In the beginning, Rome had a clear vision: survival, order, and the spread of its civilization. But over centuries, that vision blurred. Leaders sought pleasure instead of responsibility. Citizens wanted entertainment instead of sacrifice. Rome had power, wealth, and fame, but it no longer had a guiding purpose. And without purpose, even the greatest empire cannot last. Takeaway: purpose is the compass of life. Without it, strength becomes meaningless and success becomes empty. Rome teaches us that when a people, or a person, loses their why, their fall is only a matter of time. So, what can we learn from the rise and fall of Rome? From its glory to its downfall, Rome teaches us 10 timeless lessons. The dangers of unchecked power, the arrogance of pride, the blindness of ignoring small problems, and the emptiness of forgetting your purpose. Each lesson is not just about ancient history. It is a mirror for our lives today. Like Rome, we all rise with discipline, unity, and vision. And like Rome, we risk falling when we let greed, pride, and division take control. The empire may have crumbled centuries ago, but its story is still alive in us. In every choice we make, in every value we uphold, and in every purpose we pursue. So here's the real question. Will we repeat Rome's mistakes, or will we learn from them? Will we build a life and a society that endures, or will we collapse under the same weight that destroyed the greatest empire the world had ever known? The answer begins with you. If this journey through history gave you something to think about, don't let it stop here. Share it, reflect on it, and carry it forward. And if you want more stories that reveal life's deepest lessons through history and philosophy, make sure to subscribe and join this community of seekers. Because history doesn't just tell us where we've been, it shows us where we're going and how to change the course before it is too late.